We'll call the August 19th of the Jericho Planning Commission meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Beautiful summer evening. If you're watching the recording, we don't have any members of the public in the room. People on Zoom, thank you very much for coming. The agenda tonight is somewhat administrative, I would say. Our two topics are fairly administrative. The first one, after we approve our minutes of July 15th and August 5th, is to review an updated town planner report, which will be submitted to the select board in advance of their hearing when they will be reviewing zoning amendments that we have recommended to them in the spring. Then our second topic is to look at the work plan for the planning commission. And it's a little bit expanded beyond just the planning commission. It's basically projects that the town will undertake or consider to undertake for the next fiscal year, as primarily projects that need to be funded, because the town, the select board, and the staff are beginning to flesh out and work on the budget for next year. So that's what we'll be working on tonight. And then we will have any updates and other business, and then plan our next meeting, which will be on September 2nd. Would anybody like to make any changes to the agenda? Okay. So with that, we will invite public comment. So like I said, we have nobody in the room. If anybody online wishes to make a public comment, we welcome that. We ask that you make a comment about an item not on the agenda, because I will add actually a section for public comment when we're working on the work plan, perhaps before we do the task of prioritizing. So does anybody on the Zoom wish to make a comment?
You can use the raise hand function or unmute yourself.
Okay. Next is a motion to approve the minutes of July 15th.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of July 15th.
Chris, thank you. And a second. Second, Heidi. Does anybody have any corrections or clarifications to the minutes? Okay, we'll vote to approve the minutes. If you would like to approve the minutes, please say yes.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
I am abstaining.
Okay, so Wendy's abstained. And Eric, were you here? You were here. Abstained. Okay, and then the next one is the meeting of August 5th, motion to approve the minutes. Eric, thank you. And a second.
Second.
Wendy, thank you. Any corrections or updates to the minutes of August 5th? Okay, all those in favor of approving, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Actually, I'm abstaining. Susan's abstaining.
So am I.
Okay, Susan and Wendy. Abstain.
We have 4 yeses.
Yes. Okay, then our next topic is to look at the town planner's report. So we submitted changes to update the zoning bylaws to the select board after we held a public hearing. They held a public hearing, I think in July, and they received public comment. And as a result of that public comment, they directed Chris Shaheen to work on some edits to the drafted amendments. So Chris Shaheen worked and drafted those edits and has them ready to submit to the select board. The process still requires that the planning commission approve the report, which is required by the statute to accompany the amendments. So even though we are not the source of these amendments, we're not approving the amendments, we are only approving the report, which is a record of the amendments.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
So when we approve them, we're saying, yes, the report is accurate?
Yes. And so what you see on the screen are the three changes. The first one is to eliminate an exception for, to have related to a zero lot line. Which I think Chris explained this and talked to us about this before. The second is to change the setback on the maximum front yard in the village centers to, which is an increase to 30 feet as a result of public comment. And also Chris did some more ground truthing of existing pattern and desirable pattern and made that change, or has drafted that change. And then the third one is to eliminate the requirement for curbs on streets since they drive up cost. So the planning commission, we discussed all these things and we have the report in the packet. And so any other questions or comments on the report? Okay, so yes, Chris.
A minor one. Did Public Works weigh in on the curb issue? Is that a stormwater concern at all?
I think the request for no curbs came from Catherine McMain. And it was primarily driven by a cost consideration. So most of the streets in Jericho don't have curbs. And I think a lot of it is to like separate the traffic from the sidewalk, but based on how like the green space and the tree boxes worked out, Chris Shaheen's professional opinion was that it would not compromise stormwater, it would not be a safety problem, and that it was not, he was not, he was okay with the request to make the change. But
And aren't we just saying they're not required? They could still be.
yeah, yeah, just not required. Did they ask the highway department about it? I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Refresh my memory on the zero lot side setback exemption. Thought one of our intentions was to have houses that could be directly adjacent to each other on lot lines.
Right, so it's still that. There was a circumstance where the setback is actually 5 feet from the lot line. You can have attached houses, like townhouses, and then the setback is 0, but in general, the setback requirement in our draft was 5 feet. There was a footnote on the dimensional table that said that if there was no building next to you, you didn't have to observe the 5-foot setback, that you could go 0. And I don't know if it was SJ or Chris Shaheen really scrutinized that and said that the action of the first party would create a limit on the second party. Whoever was second to build would then have to be 10 feet back. Maybe it came from the discussion with the fire department.
The fire department was, when Chris and I met with them, was not at all happy with buildings being that close together.
Right.
So they were definitely pushing for that.
Right. So if you had 5 feet plus 5 feet, it would be 10 feet. And I think that was what the resolution was, or that was what was accepted. And this footnote created a condition where it would not be 10 feet, it would be less. So it was fire safety, but it was also putting a constraint on another property owner just by your action. And that was deemed to be like not fair.
So if I own 2 pieces of property and I want to build a building that cuts across both pieces and is connected at the lot line, is that allowed? Because I read it says, no, I cannot do that. I cannot create, say, a Richmond downtown with this regulation.
But we're okay with
They're adjoining buildings at that point.
counter,
I think it depends on the type of
Building.
right, we're
type,
okay with
but within,
townhouses that are connected.
right, but the assumption is that that's on one lot.
The fire department would be fine if they were connected with, built to code.
And in the intention of having more compact development, higher density, it would make sense to have them abut each other.
Because you wouldn't want to just make one lot.
I'm really hesitant to change anything that Chris has together, especially in his absence.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I'm fine with the changes as Chris has suggested.
Are you concerned with the changes or if there's a possible way to ameliorate it later?
It can probably be ameliorated later on, but I do believe that if our intention is to turn that into a village center with high density, that doesn't look like Celebration in Florida, where everybody's set back the same amount, but really looks like Richmond, looks like parts of the rest of Vermont, where you have rows of buildings separately owned, but sharing an adjoining wall. This may prevent that from happening. And one of our stated visions for this is that kind of a facade.
This particular change edit that he's suggesting is not the thing responsible for preventing what you're envisioning. It's the setback to the lot line. So that would prevent that.
Mhm. So we
And
were allowing a 0 setback, and now we're requiring a 5-foot or 10-foot setback, 10-foot setback.
but we weren't allowing it. We were only, not we, the table, and this actually it was from before. It wasn't new it was from the North Carolina thing, 10 years ago. Was, only to the first person to build. The next person to build would have to then fulfill the 10-foot
Separation.
separation.
Mhm. Or could go with 0 foot and have a larger space.
I don't think the table was 0 foot ever.
If you owned both lots, the solution would be to combine the lots.
Right.
Correct.
So it doesn't prevent you from your vision.
But it requires the developer to have more funds and to be able to do it all in one shot, rather than allowing other people to get a shot
Yes.
at putting up that kind of a building.
So it'd be
Does
very hard
become
to know.
exclusionary in that sense.
Yes, but if there was two separate lots owned by two different people, if you were the first to build, you would almost certainly want windows on that wall, because it's pretty unusual to do a building without a windows on a wall. In which case you would then be, when your neighbor says, oh, I want to butt right up to you, you would then be stuck with having to change that. So it seems slightly unlikely to happen in the event that the lots are owned by different people. So my inclination is to not worry about it.
I've been in cities where they have torn down a building between two other buildings where there are bricked up windows between them. So that has happened in the
Yeah.
past. What I would like to see on this is an exception that says if you are building side by side to create row houses or something like that, this can be set aside.
Well, if you're building row houses, if that's your building
Not
type.
you as in, if I'm gonna build a row house right next to Chris's row house, next to your row house, this says we have to be 10 feet apart from everybody. And we might all say between the three of us, you know what? I want those extra 5 feet, you want those extra 5 feet, let's put them all together And yeah, I got windows on this side, I'm gonna have to board them up. You've got windows on your side, you have to board them up, but that's in the interest of higher density. In the interest of affordability, that would make more sense. So what I would say is, yeah, we're gonna have to go with this because it's done. But I think we should put it on our agenda as something to say very soon. This is an amendment we want to make to say that if you are doing that type of development, whether individually or as a consortium, you can have 0 lot lines.
Well, we could also just ask Chris when he gets back to confirm that your sphere is a reality or not, right? And he'll be able to
Right, like
say-
I might not have the, every word right in my
Yeah, He'll be able
head.
to say, oh, no, you can still do that, and then your concern would be addressed.
Yes.
Do you feel okay enough for us to make a motion to approve this updated report?
I may abstain from voting on it, but yes, I think it's okay.
We could vote no.
Or could you say with it? I'm not sure about
Well,
the
you
process,
either
right?
approve or you don't approve. I wouldn't put a comma somewhere.
Okay.
But I hear you, you're questioning whether or not there should be setbacks allowed of 0.
Yes, in a high density targeted growth area, which
Right.
this is.
So, and I understand, like, you'd like us to consider that question at some point in the future. Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so does somebody want to make a motion to accept the town planner report
I make a motion to accept the town planner report.
or
Do
approve?
we have to call it the revised town plan report for the record? I'm just asking this.
Actually, it's a planning commission report, I'm looking at and
The
I
title?
think it's, I think it's a new report because it's a new draft with a new hearing. But you're right, it is a revision. So a motion to approve the planning commission report prepared by the town planner to summarize edits made to the zoning amendments that are being considered by the select board as part of the bylaw modernization grant project. I just made that motion.
I will make.
Okay, so somebody want to second it?
Yes, I will
Okay, so Susan made the motion, Wendy seconds it. All those in favor of approving the report, say yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes,
Everybody said yes?
Abstaining.
So you're not approving the report. I don't think you can, I guess you can abstain, but. So you're abstaining from approving the report?
but it doesn't have to be unanimous.
No, it doesn't. I just want to
And you
know.
could just say no.
Say no.
Okay,
I want more clarity on that point, but
okay.
still voted as a committee, it's still been voted approved.
Okay, sure. All right, so then moving on to the work plan. So, I wrote everybody, this is in the packet, that Chris Shaheen, Chris Brown, and I had a meeting in advance of tonight's meeting. And Chris Shaheen had assembled a list of all the various planning projects from the getting it done section of the town plan. And then we went over that list and he had established different characteristics about each project. Whether or not the project was on the short-term list, the medium-term list, the long-term list. And then also he put some very preliminary estimates around cost for the budget. And then, so the three of us talked about it and we talked about what was really feasible based on our bandwidth, what was, what were we ready to do? Because there was pre-work done, or where did it make sense in the logical flow? And so we boiled it down to a smaller list. And like I said at the beginning, the purpose of the going over the list tonight is that the planning commission's been asked to submit items for the budget. in September. So that's what we're looking at tonight.
So this is kind of what you just said.
Yes, it is, but I just want to clarify one thing on here. What we're talking about tonight are planning projects that will be in the town's operating budget. What we're not talking about are the big projects that the town is gonna do for the capital budget, like wastewater or sidewalks or new roads or a recreation center. But Chris was very clear that the planning projects that we fund in the operating budget, their primary purpose is to deliver the data needed to create the capital budget. So when we investigate or we update a sidewalk plan, that would roll into an implementation plan, which is basically in the capital budget. And we're not talking about the capital budget tonight, we're just talking about our projects. Any questions about that?
And we're talking about projects for calendar year, not fiscal year?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year. So
Yeah.
Fiscal year 27.
Fiscal year 27. So we have, although you'll see on the list, we are starting some of these projects soon. And some of them don't necessarily require money, but we thought it'd be helpful to have them on the list. So this is a summary of where we are with the town budget. So because I know we're very interested in the capital budget, Chris thought it would be helpful to just remind everybody that the select board has formed a working group to work on the capital budget. And that includes members of the select board. Chris Brown and I are on it, and then town staff. And we're gonna be working through the fall. And then we'll come back to the planning commission and we'll come back to the select board and everything, but we're gonna be working through the fall on trying to develop at least a framework, if not a full-blown capital budget, because it'll probably take, I'm thinking, 2 to 3 budget cycles. So that's already happening and we'll be working on that through the fall because the planning commission will be a primary stakeholder. Tonight, our job is we're gonna go through these projects and prioritize them and maybe talk a little bit about the projects. And then over the next couple of weeks, Chris will be working with us to refine the cost estimates. And we'll probably come back at one of our September meetings and actually approve, this is our recommendation to the select board. So tonight's not a final decision-making night. It's more of a discussion night to get our arms around it. What's missing, what feels well-defined, what feels ill-defined. And then there are the dates that October 16th, our budget needs to be finalized and submitted to the town administrator. And then the whole budget will be up for public discussion in November. So we're feeding into this town meeting reimagine process.
But as part of our working group, well, question, not a statement. Will the working group that includes select board members have a sense well before October 16th of what we're thinking?
What we're thinking?
Yeah,
Yes.
because as I keep saying, they are always well ahead of their published dates for budget work. So when they get a list on paper that maxes out what they're comfortable with, it's really difficult to get them to add something.
Yes.
So I just want to get this to them even preliminarily, so they have a heads up as soon as we can.
Okay.
Do you think that, things that are discussed on September 20th, at the kickoff meeting for the budget discussions will have any impact on our decision-making with this list, or do you think they're just discrete entities and what happens there won't necessarily change our order or what's on our list, or do we want to keep that possibility open? I mean, we have one meeting before that, right?
Yeah,
Or do we have two?
yeah.
The first one was the second. And the second one,
One is on the 16th.
yeah, so it would be great if that meeting happened, you know.
Right, so we could get a little validation, like, I don't know how much that will really change though. Did you go to the budget meeting at town meeting reimagined last year?
Mhm.
So it was pretty high level, but it probably would validate that we're kind of on the right track or not. So I would say plow forward, and if anything comes up from that budget meeting in September, that's the whole town meeting, that would have us make any changes, we would have time to do that.
Right.
Can I ask one more
Yeah.
question? And you probably said it, and I just went by me. But in the work that the three of you did to prepare the list.
Mm.
We're looking at money, are we also looking at time?
Mhm.
Meaning in terms of like Chris Shaheen's capacity or our capacity
Mhm.
to get things done, that's already been filtered in this first flush has been.
Somewhat, yes,
Right.
but this is probably more work than we could do.
Okay,
And that's why he wants us to prioritize it, because we probably are gonna have to pick and choose.
okay.
And, yeah, we started out with a bigger list. And feasibility, time, interest, bandwidth, and then he was thinking a lot about logical sequencing also.
Great. Okay, that's helpful to exercise.
So we basically used the town plan as kind of the starting point. So the priorities on the town plan are housing, climate resilience, conservation. And the planning commission's work plan really needs to fulfill the vision of the town plan and help the town get there. And he was also asking us to focus on thinking about the actual deliverables. Like, there's lots of projects that we could do and lots of projects that we want to do, but which ones will produce data that then become actionable? So as we go through it tonight, just keep thinking about, like, what are the deliverables, and how can we garner support for the projects? Like, who might the stakeholders be, and how feasible is it? What else can we think about for implementation? Because if you think about it from Chris Shaheen's point of view, he's kind of coming at this like he wasn't with us as we developed the town plan. And so in some ways, he's really wants to hear from us, like, well, what are you thinking about what this project really entails? And by putting it down in words, you realize, like, oh, I thought that meant this, and somebody else thinks that means that.
A little bit more about what you mean or what you think Chris means when he says projects that produce data. So this is like reports. These are studies,
Mm.
and that those things support decision making,
Mhm.
data informed decision making, and
Yes.
that's what he's feeling is a priority.
Yes, and he's also thinking that to help so that the projects are not so nebulous.
Okay.
There's a couple things on here that aren't exactly that. So for example, like,
Should I go to the next one?
yeah, is the next one, the projects. So these are the projects that are in the town plan. So basically, we've already said these are all the things we want to do, meaning the town. The town has said these are all the things we want to work on. He pulled out the things that were very planning oriented, and we kind of had like a little bit of an aha moment that the town plan is currently very focused on planning and less focused on implementation. And that's okay, because as we remember, when we had ARPA money came to us, we were like, well, we don't have like shovel ready. We didn't have a wastewater plan ready to go, or a bike ped plan exactly ready to go with, like, this is the next project in the queue. If only we had $1 million, this is what we would do. So, these are most of the projects that we identified in the town plan are planning projects. Which is kind of frustrating in some ways because it means, you know, you're not gonna have like results on the ground, and that's maybe something to think about, is like, what are we missing? What projects maybe that we didn't identify in the town plan, or they could fit under an umbrella project in the town plan, but that would produce results sooner and benefits sooner. So this is from the getting it done section, short-term, medium-term, and long-term projects. For this discussion, we didn't really consider long-term, other than trying to think about making progress along the way, but, so we boiled it down, included the short-term projects and some of the medium-term projects.
The first bullet point, medium, second line, that says commercial district.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, so then, okay, so now that was to his report. So we have the list of projects now. Does anybody want a hard copy of the list? Because we don't have it on the slide.
Yes, please.
Okay, so maybe we should keep this
There.
slide up for,
And this is the same one, this is the list that you just sent to.
yes, yeah. Okay, so for the people on the Zoom, I'll say that of this larger list, the, under the short-term projects, the advancing wastewater recommendations is on here, but in a different form. Because that actual project we already completed. Studying water service to the village centers has been refined to studying water service for Jericho Center and developing an official map on the list that we're gonna talk about tonight. From the medium term, the projects that are on the list are developing a strategy to meet the housing targets, developing public education to create new housing, and updating the transportation bike ped plan. And did I get them all?
I just realized I can do this, so can you read the first ones again?
The first ones were,
All
all three of those, all three of the short-term ones.
Okay.
And then, develop strategy to meet housing targets.
Okay,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the 8.
I only have 6, though.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, because 2 projects were missing that we're working on. One of them is we're gonna do another round of zoning projects, and the other one is, working on the capital plan. And working on the capital plan was in the town plan under like expanding capacity, but it didn't make, it's not really like a planning project per se. So that's the 8th project. 7th project is a zoning update. The 8th project is working on the capital plan. So the planning commission is looking at the list of those 8 projects. So advancing wastewater recommendations, when we were working on the town plan, the feasibility study was not yet completed from Du Bois and King. They finished the study and the planning commission had assigned ourselves, we want to weigh in on the feasibility study. We weighed in on it and we said, yes, we think the select board should go forward to evaluate further Riverside. The select board decided to do that. And the next step for that is the preliminary engineering report, Like the state has a process, they're following the process. So advanced wastewater recommendations from this is basically done. But we reframed it because we want to continue working on it to the project that's listed here, advance the wastewater initiative for Riverside to the next step. And so that includes finishing the preliminary engineering report, hiring a project manager to run the project. If you think about what we heard from Pam and Finley, they talked about leadership required and being organized, developing a public outreach campaign, developing a financial analysis of costs and revenues, and any unused balance from the 100 grand that they had previously allocated should really roll into maybe the seed of a wastewater reserve fund. So that's how that project was reframed, which is still probably like pretty big and maybe should be broken up into multiple projects.
So I have a comment on that. It's possible that the task force will want some money for, well, I guess that's here for marketing. Yeah, oh, never mind, that's there.
Right, so we were sort of a little bit
We talked about
schizophrenic.
this, I just forgot.
We were a little schizophrenic because some of the projects are actually like PC budget projects, like we want to hire a consultant and do this project. And other projects are ones where the PC wants to recommend that the town allocate money to continue along. So the wastewater project is not a planning commission project, it's a select board project. But we wanted to help them define what tasks should be funded in the budget for this coming year. They'll probably have their own ideas. They might have a better idea of what the preliminary engineering report is going to cost. Also, we're thinking that there will be funding available. So this is all expenses, but it doesn't say anything about funding. So a lot of these projects will be funded by grants. They're not necessarily like writing a check. So if you look at like updating the bike ped plan, we can probably do that through the regional planning commission, and it probably won't actually cost the town 25,000. It might be a match. We pay 5, they cover 20, that kind of thing. So don't worry quite so much at the moment about how everything's going to be funded.
And are we having a conversation about priorities first before we like start to think about like the, comments about budget? That feels like go down a rabbit hole.
I'm not sure I understand your.
Well, I mean, I was looking at the costs associated with wastewater initiative, hire the project manager. Does that include benefits? Does that not include benefits? Like how realistic is this number? But that feels like that's not what we want to do right now.
Right.
Right? We want to
Yeah.
talk about what are our priorities, what might be missing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I just clarified the wastewater project. The other project I just wanted to clarify was enable housing rural districts. So we undertook the bylaw modernization grant. We had some things that we were like, we can't do this now, it's out of scope. And then we also have kind of a running queue of zoning things that need to be fixed. That's what that project is. And the select board has really asked for clarification about how we're addressing housing town-wide. And we've explained that we thought we were going to do it all at once. We realized we couldn't do it all at once for a whole bunch of reasons. We split it into 2 projects. And our goal is to have a package of amendments to them in March. So we know that between now and January, February, we're going to be like back in the crux of working on zoning. I'm very optimistic that now that Chris Shaheen is here and he has his arms around us and the job and the town, and also we have a better idea of what we're trying to accomplish and we're not working with a consultant, that process will run a lot more quickly than our current BMG amendment package went.
And this project, this one includes things like changing minimum lot size.
Yes. So we'll look at minimum lot size, we'll look at residential uses in the rural areas, we'll look at an update to the natural resources overlay at the same time, because the state has passed other rules for us to consider. Maybe we'll look at Eric's comment, just now about 0 lot lines in the, I don't want to really go back so much to the village centers, but it's a good question. So we'll just make sure we didn't miss anything.
There's also PUDs. looking at-
Yes, PUDs, making sure PUDs are accomplishing what we want them to accomplish, how to make them better.
And if there's something, if there are alternatives to PUDs that function similarly, but are, a newer, better tool to either complement PUDs, or maybe we decide that they're an improvement.
So Chris is thinking that we can do that in-house. That we have what we need with DCRPC and VLCT services helping us. So in some ways, that's kind of an automatic priority number 1, because it's already in the queue and we've already heard from the select board that they really want us to do that. The rest of them are pretty self-explanatory, but before we think about prioritizing, does anybody have any other questions about the 8 projects in the list, like what they are, what they include, why are they that, what does this mean?
I'm curious about the decision around not to include anything about the commercial district as a priority. What were some of the, cost benefits of including, not including?
I'm looking at you, Chris Brown.
I thought you were, it was fine, I was looking at you. I think that, there, part of it was just a simple question of how much can we take on, in, the next segment of time. And I guess in my mind, at least, there's still a question of, what is really next with that project, given the sort of history we've had with our last round there. And given the focus on housing, while we've decided that it could be a mixed use place, it's still the commercial district. And so I guess I was thinking at least that as far as prioritizing our work relative to housing, that might not be as high on the list as other things. So I think those were some of the reasons we.
Mhm. And my thinking on it too was that it's not that we wouldn't. So when we do the first task, enable housing rural districts, we could potentially look at some of the similar issues in the commercial district, like minimum lot size.
Okay.
Without necessarily having like a full-on focus on the commercial district. So we might be able to make some improvements there without treating it as a standalone project.
Right. That feels, I'm just gonna use the word better for lack of anything else. That feels better to me, because I do think there's some potential there for housing, for sure.
Mhm.
And it just feels like a missed opportunity if we're not including it in some of these conversations.
Mhm.
Can I bring up a scenario and see if it fits somewhere? Because I think I'm hoping that a not pass off, but a hand. What do people say, like when you actually give someone a hand off, but it's like a warm hand? It's not like you're just like tossing something,
Oh.
right? But it's like, right,
Yes.
there's something in the service industry where they talk about it. Anyway, connecting, Representative Edie Greening with Paula Carrier and the Chris Sheen and you, Susan, around the expansion that the garden might want to make with wastewater. Where would that fit in here? If that's a side project and we don't have to have it reflected here, because that's an opportunity that might be on the table.
Yeah. I don't know if there's enough meat on the bone,
Yeah.
finding other cliches yet. No, right. So should we have dialogue with them? Absolutely. That's a great catalyst such that something might take shape.
Right.
There's not like a definable project.
That's fine.
I mentioned it to Chris and he had said he had heard conflicting things about that potential. And so he wanted to know more about it before he was ready to sort of put it on a list of
Oh, that totally.
what we're gonna do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That makes sense. It's just, I think when I think about it is there, and maybe it's just thinking about the question of having a plan, but also being opportunistic as things come up that are not on the plan. That
Oh,
we
yeah.
have enough spaciousness, both in terms of time and capacity for, whether it be for Chris Shaheen's time or special projects money,
Mhm.
that we don't lock ourselves out of opportunities that might come our way.
That came up in the keynote on the conference I was at the other day, where the speaker said, you know, of her 3 points, she said, you always have to be ready to pivot. And I think that's what you're saying,
Yeah,
is we wanna position ourselves to be able to
okay.
shift, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and with that in mind, I'm really hoping that the town finds a way to hire an additional staff member. At least one more staff member, because I think that the current staff is just maxed out. And so I think if there was more bandwidth, it would be easier to pivot and, you know, be flexible and so.
Okay, and so when we're gonna go through our exercise and prioritize, are
Mhm.
we? It's not with a guarantee that something that's rated high is gonna go through and something rated low is gonna drop off. It's just to
Right.
give a sense of
Yes,
priority.
right, yeah.
Okay.
And like, you know, do we all pretty much see it the same way? And if we don't, like, where would we go?
And we're prioritizing in absence of like what we think is the amount of time that a project would take. Is that feels like, to me, like it's hard for me to kind of quantify Chris's time.
That's why I was asking, was there already a look to the, like, when they put this list together, to include an assessment of feasibility of time and effort?
Yeah,
And we can't do all of this, is what Chris said. In 1 year.
right.
I think it's also important to remember that these all have different demands on time. Both are the PC's time, Chris Shaheen's time, town staff time.
Right.
So it's it makes it easier and harder at the same time, I guess, that way,
Right,
because
right.
you can't see them all the same way because
Yeah, it seems like our inputs that would be helpful would be to be agnostic about time. Because ultimately then it's the job of the select board to figure out how to get it done. You know, if these 4 things are like really critical. Or they say, or that, you know, they decide that they're not gonna be able to get them done.
yeah, like the official map, for example, this is for me personally a confounding thing, but because I've heard so many different things about it, but I think it would be important to consider, but I also, in talking with Chris, his feeling is that the first step on that is to talk to CCRPC and find out more about what an official map is as a tool and when we should do it and how we should do it. So I think it's really important to have it here, but it might not be a lot of time for anybody
I think it would
until we
be
know more.
great to add, well, if we talk to CCRCP, to specifically ask them if anything that we could potentially put on the official map would then affect some of the other things on our list. And that would help us decide, just drive it forward or to let it stay back a little, because if they say, well, if you do these 3 things on the official map, that will make X, Y, and Z projects happen more smoothly, then it makes sense to do that first. But if they're like, it doesn't really matter, then we can sort of.
Right, like Chris's knee jerk, Chris Shaheen's knee jerk was, well, if we're gonna update the bike ped plan, wouldn't we wanna do that first? Before we did an official map, but then we were like, well, we could do everything
My
first before
response
we.
is.
Then when we're
Just never do it.
Right,
Yeah,
because there's,
right.
this year it's the bike
So-
ped plan, and next year it's gonna be some, a park plan or an open space plan, which is on our list.
We've been talking about it since I've been on the PC.
Right, right,
So I would like to at least have a new conversation about it.
right. But so that there is like a little bit of a potential, like, logical order for things.
Mhm.
And so Sabina, you're thinking the logical order, we might get some advice from CCRPC for the logical order?
At least to help us
With some of it. I
Yeah.
think.
inform our decision making,
Okay.
right? Like,
Mhm.
not just, like, the conversation could be really a preliminary one. To
Right.
say, like, should we go for this? Is it gonna be that much more impactful if we do it now, or are we overthinking it?
Can I ask a clarifying question
Yeah.
about the developed strategy to meet housing targets?
Yeah,
Is it broader than what the strategies and action items are? Like, I'll continue, because I mean, if that develop strategies to meet housing targets, that also could be what we're doing in enabling housing in the rural districts. The description attached to the developed strategy to meet housing targets doesn't feel like a PC function.
I think it doesn't say the Affordable Housing Committee
Is the lead, yeah.
is the lead. And we would be in support of that. But it was, from his point of view, a quote unquote planning project.
I'm not sure what.
So I
what
think
we do.
the difference is that the first one is all about zoning. And the second one seems to be more about an active identifying of parcels and people to like get stuff started.
Right, that to me doesn't feel like a PC
Yes,
function.
okay.
Yeah. So it's right.
But I think. So that would be, in my mind anyway, an example of something that could stay on the list. As an important thing for the town. It could stay on the PC list as an important thing for the town, but we could also, and we could keep ourselves very informed about it and be ready to pivot if they came back and said, the zoning was this, that would even be better. But we could also understand that it wouldn't be a big drain of resources for us.
So it's here because it was on the list from the town plan.
Right. Is
So-
that,
And so it was on the list of here are the things we need to do to make the town plan move from plan to action. And when you're saying, yes, action, but not by the PC.
Right.
we did kind of talk about it, when we were in the joint planning commission select board meeting, and we've heard public comment that says we're putting all our eggs in the basket of infill. And is it really practical? Like, there's no space? And can you really, and then remember, we did the future land use map and the housing targets with CCRPC, and Jericho accepted a target of several hundred units of housing. And we talked about it at that meeting. We were like, yeah, we're gonna have to figure out,
Yeah.
how are we gonna achieve these targets? Where are these units gonna go? And kind of circling back to the conversation about the commercial district. If by working on the future land use map, we identified some areas in the rural areas that would be really well suited for some clustered housing. And we looked at the transition zones and the village zones, and it's like, can we really achieve those targets in these areas? Is there enough space? Is there enough soil capacity? So to me, that's a little bit of what that project kind of is, because one of your takeaways might be this village center really needs to be larger, or part of the commercial district needs to be merged in. Like, I see, maybe I should just be explicit, that one of the, instead of a deliverable being an estimate, maybe one of the deliverables would be like proposed changes to the zoning districts. The actual map, which is a whole other can of worms to change. But like, right, we've talked about it before, like, oh, well, maybe we should make these zones bigger, but, or smaller, and this would give us some of that data. District boundary changes. Or maybe that would be one of the things that would catalyze a revisit of the commercial district master plan at some point in the future, to say like, oh, well, we thought mixed use and we were preserving space for certain industrial types of business, and maybe that's not really the priority anymore. Because out of the 600 units of housing, this is the best place for half those or something. I don't know.
So it sounds like there are two things. One is to make sure that the deliverable is the deliverable that makes sense, right? And then the other is just stay on our list, or do we have a long handoff to the development corporation? So it's called the Community Development Corporation and or the Affordable Housing. They say, like, this actually is your work.
Yes. And they probably are gonna need help, some consultant help to do that.
Yeah, so.
And this is just like a placeholder number. The similar for the next one, public education about creating new housing, is also for the Affordable Housing Committee. But kind of, again, sort of a planning project with money attached, so that's why it was came on this list. Okay, how do you want to do it? You want to like sketch out your numbers, and then we kind of like when you're playing cards and you like turn over your hand? Or do you want to out loud nominate, your top 2 or top 3 projects going down the line and see what we come up with?
I'm wondering, well, you're assuming that, well, I guess there's a question. The first question would be, is the list the right list?
Mhm.
And then the second question would be, do we need to put an order to the list? Which is what you're suggesting we do.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, if it's on the list, does the order matter? How much does the order matter?
When I look at the list, Chris, I see 3 elements that are about housing. And I think about dependencies. What is it that's going to allow and enable more housing to come into the area? And to me, that comes back into sort of the official map, water service and wastewater. So that will help us understand where housing can be put in, which then can help to enable the districts meet the targets and achieve those goals. And to me, I hate to get on the drum again, but wastewater.
Well, wastewater is actively happening. I mean, it's that is, in process.
Well, we've had, according to Chuck, how many different wastewater studies have been done in the last 20 years?
I know, but I'm just telling you that we have a task force like we haven't had in the past. And there's a lot of energy and momentum for it. So I am very comfortable saying that is moving forward. It remains to be seen how far we get with it, but it is definitively moving forward.
So I would just caveat that right now we're just looking at Riverside. We have other parts of town
Correct.
that in order to achieve these housing goals, will need a solution to wastewater. Doesn't have to be a large treatment plant. We can start putting in community septic tanks in places and so on and so forth. But
And as far as the official map goes, I don't think we know enough at this particular moment to assess where that should be as a priority. I think we should just, it's my personal opinion, we should just have an official map, and I would be in favor of just starting with what we currently have today, just to get an official map started. But Chris's point was that, that may not be the best strategy for this. We need to find out from CCRPC what the best strategy is. And so, I think we don't know enough to know what the priority of the official map is.
until we have to do the official map all at once, or can it be phased out?
Yes,
Because we have an official map that says these are the soils best suited to wastewater community systems. And preserve those for wastewater and then move on to the other things around that. Which would help us get to our housing goals
right. These are
by
all
identifying where the housing can be
part
placed.
of the questions for CCRPC.
So I would say you asked two questions. Is this the right list? Good, that's good question number one. And does the order really matter? I think it does, because we probably will have to make some trade-offs and make some pivots. And I think it's good for us to, almost like the process of discussing the priorities helps flesh out everybody's assumptions and motivations, and kind of like your smarts about what you see relationships together. So I think it's productive to try to put them in an order.
And we already have an obligation via a mandate by the select board to work on the first row
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Right, so that's a given.
yeah, that's a given. So that's why I said, I think that has to be number one,
Okay.
no matter how we think about it.
I was gonna say it was number 2, because I gave number 1 to advancing wastewater initiative for Riverside, since it's already happening.
Good point, right? Whereas
Right, because it's already started, we've already made a commitment, and so therefore the next commitment needs to be the enabling housing rural districts, updating that.
okay,
It's semantics.
Yeah, that's fine. For the advanced wastewater initiative, can you please clarify the deliverable prep for the bond vote? Is that suggesting that we would have a bond vote on the town meeting, 2026 town meeting?
I think that's written down like that to provoke that question.
Okay.
I don't think.
I don't think
don't-
we'll be ready,
Okay,
but
A year early.
yeah,
okay.
I don't.
so maybe it should say
We're not-
327.
Yeah, we're not. It's not going to be 326.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be 326 either.
Okay.
Yet it
Raise
remain a high
March,
priority.
the time when you start to prepare everyone for the
Well, the task force will be
Inevitable.
working on that for sure.
We'll have a very strong presence 3/26
Okay.
Yes.
with information.
Right, but this is like meant to say like, when would the vote actually be? Yeah.
But in terms of actual priorities, in terms of calendar priorities, the capital planning budget needs to happen in the next month.
Mhm.
So that, that, in that sense, that would be my number one, because it has to happen now.
Cause it's more urgent.
It's very urgent.
Okay, but then how do you reconcile that with what Heidi was just saying, like wastewater is already in progress, like the select board is already looking at proposals for the preliminary engineering report.
Well, then I say, for me personally, I don't care what number you give it. I mean, it's gonna happen first. I mean, you could, the top three are all happening now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if someone wants to say this is one and that's two and that's three, I don't really care.
Okay.
Because I don't think they're happening. So
Yeah.
It could be one A,
Right.
one B, and one C.
Well, maybe there's just like a divider. Like, that's the first chunk.
So where does water service in Jericho Center fit in, where we heard multiple instances of people saying they have to boil water, they don't have water, their own houses there. Wells are now being
That's
infiltrated. I
mild.
realize that's a smaller area.
Well, no, it's an extremely important issue, but I think one of the challenges with that going forward will be, because one of the avenues for funding is the CWSRF, but one of the ways to qualify that is to have documented non-potable water. And anecdotally, there is a reluctance for people to have their water tested because they don't want to be told they can't use their water. And so there's going to be potentially a challenging chicken or egg thing with moving this forward at a certain point. But I think it's an extremely important issue. So I think
Can somebody remind me, was any part of that Du Bois and King study focusing on water in that part of town? Or did they only do like wastewater? I remember.
Wastewater,
They didn't-
solving the wastewater.
Well, there was
They did water lines and
they did.
I just, would that be building on what they did, or is it just really two separate questions?
I think that what they did in their study was extremely schematic.
Okay, so,
So I think it's, I don't know that there's much there to build on.
okay, that answers my question.
Didn't they just focus on, my recollection is they focused on the wastewater. The theory being, if you solve the wastewater, you solve the septic intrusion into the water systems, which alleviates the water problem.
But the water problem is multifactorial because it's also firefighting. So
Yes.
it's not, but they did mention the water they mentioned them in tandem because they go together. But they did also suggest that if you could solve the water problem first.
Right, because the inverse is also true.
Yeah.
If you solve the water, then
So-
there's
so-
more room for septic. And I think that it's a lot less expensive to solve the water potentially than the septic.
Can I ask just clarifying questions?
Mhm.
So for the lead, TP means town planner,
Mhm.
and the stakeholders, JCPA.
Jericho Center Preservation Authority.
Thank you.
So, yeah, he was asking us like if there are community groups that would advocate or be good people, like is there any organized, like a homeowners association kind of thing? All right, so does anybody disagree that the top three are the top three? I'm almost tempted to make them like one A, one A, one B, one C, yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with
That
that.
they're like, the train has left the station, there's no way that we would submit, that we would back off from saying like, oh yeah, we don't need to
Mhm.
work on those or fund those. Okay, so then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then can we focus on the remaining 5?
Mhm.
So we just talked about the water. We talked a little bit about the official map. We talked a little bit about the housing strategies and outreach.
I would, well, I don't know how to prioritize it, but it would be nice if we could ask Chris to, in all of his time, to reach out to CCRPC about the map. And at least allow us to make a more informed decision about that.
Yeah, and I think that if we, I mean, I'm still struggling with the fact that we, as you pointed out, that when we have two things that are actually affordable housing committee projects, which is a separate committee from the planning commission. I almost feel like I don't want to prioritize those against other things. I want to say those need to happen. That's somebody else's domain, which then leaves us with the water service, the official map, and the bike head plan to prioritize.
That makes sense to me.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's because it's not really our job. It's really the select board's
Right.
job, I guess. Yeah.
So if that's true, then it does seem like the understanding of the official map should happen before we prioritize it before or after the bike ped plan.
Mhm.
Right?
So are we, did we land on study water to service to Jericho Center as?
No, I was just trying to think,
Okay.
and then where would that fit?
I see.
Right? What do you think?
For me, that's the next priority, because that is a public safety issue. And,
I agree.
that's one of the main functions of municipal government.
And I think that in reality, what that would mean, the first step would be an RFP for, I hate to say it, a study on all the logistics involved with getting water to Jericho City. So again, it's a really important thing, and we could put it number 2, but it's not going to be a huge time drain on our part at the outset, because it's really, maybe it's an official memo to the select board saying, please, send out an RFP.
Right. And maybe like Linda can do that or Paula can do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be Chris per se.
Right.
Like
Right.
we would probably need to work on the rationale for the application and the RFP, but that wouldn't be a lot of our time.
The harder part
It
would be
would circuit an awful lot of that though, because Chittenden Water District has a tank at the top of Packard Road that serves MMU. It's an easy, how much does it cost to lay pipe up to Jericho City?
right, but it's not just, because that was my first thought, but it's not just the pipe, it's how much do you actually need there? Like, what do you need for firefighting? What do you need for water, for drinking water? What do what are the needs? What are the current needs? What are the possible future needs?
You put a 6-inch pipe is what's running down Packard Road, and that's what's providing everything here.
I know, I don't think it's as simple as that. And then is that water tower adequate? And if that's not adequate, what's the next option?
I think it's a pressure tower, not a storage tower, but
Or whatever. I mean, anyway, so I
I
think,
think we can make it a big deal and call for an RFP and all kinds of things. Or we can call the company that's gonna put in the water system and say, how much is it gonna cost? Seems to me if we want to get an answer quickly,
well, that was my first thought too, but then in talking to other people, they pointed out that that is one possible option, but that they might say, we don't have the capacity. And so the answer then isn't we can't get water to Jericho Center. The answer is, how else can we get water there?
I also thought I heard in what you were saying, Chris, too, is we're not exactly sure how much we need or what we need. Are we clear that we know what we need?
We're not.
Okay,
And we would have to also maybe factor in projected need, right? If we're talking
Mhm.
about growth.
I
How
hear
many new
your
houses are we gonna
action.
need to
Right.
serve?
So that's the kind of
We can dither
input.
around or we can get something done.
A study feels like a necessary delay is what you're saying.
Yes.
I think this is not our job, but I think we could certainly mention that. I think we need to do a better job of making sure there are clear established deadlines for reports and things, you know, because I feel like that was a big issue with the wastewater. It's like these constant delays. And so
Well, and that
we have to be more firm in what our expectations
was
are.
a topic of conversation at the task force meeting, and that relative to wastewater, that we will do a much better job. going
Right, I
forward.
mean, it's, again, that's not
Yeah.
our decision to make, but we should all kind
Yeah.
of make sure that that messaging gets passed along.
So it
Maybe-
sounds, yeah, so it sounds like just in terms of this question of water service to Jericho Center. There's some energy that needs to be put into what would a scope of an RFP be, and is it really necessary to get us to where we need in the fastest path? Fastest and most effective, and balancing that, right? And that is something that we are all saying should be a priority because the public safety issue. So it sounds like that is the next priority for sure.
Maybe the way it's framed is too like passive
Yeah.
and yawning and laborious and taking too much time. And so the act, and I think that's because initially it was like, well, we don't know in the town plan. It's like, maybe it's a good idea. I think we know a lot more now than we did when we wrote this in the town plan. So how can we maybe restate that? Like, what really is the goal is like develop, determine how,
Right.
like we want to be able to make a decision, go, no go by the end of FY 27 and what the strategy is gonna be.
The other reason I'm as tired of studies as anybody here, believe me, but it's also, hopefully, if we did a study, it would give you the opinion of probable cost. So that we would know it's a $500,000 project or it's a $5 million project.
I wonder if we reframed the deliverable and worked backwards, if that would help, because the way the deliverable is written right now is there's a report that's ready. As opposed to a recommended strategy for action by the select board. Right, that feels like if that were the deliverable, that then leads into a different set of questions of what needs to be looked at. And what needs to be in the content of said recommendation versus a report. There's something more actionable, that there's sort of tangible for me in that. And that could therefore be that it does include some amount of study and it's an analysis of options for remediation that would include cost and timeline. And not just here's what we found. Does that get us closer? And does that feel like what we're trying to accomplish, I guess is most important.
I think so. Right, like, kind of like the wastewater, option A, B, C, here's what they cost, here's how long they take, there are pros and cons. We think you should do 3.
Right? And the options should be based on an understanding of what we have now and what we think we need to have in the future,
Right,
right?
right. And I think that's kind of what this is saying, but it's not really driving enough to a decision.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I think it sounds too passive.
And then if we did that and we put a time on it, so for example, some of the other things have a, like, it will be done by a particular point in time. Maybe that's the other piece we could do is that,
Well, I think to your point, not many of these actually do have a date.
okay, I was hopeful.
I think it would be great to have a date. I think it would just help everybody.
Mhm.
Two of them have a date.
So my next couple of questions are gonna show like how little I know about water infrastructure, but would we be hiring a consultant to do a report only to find out capacity question? What is the capacity? What do we need? Because there's only one show in town, right? To put the pipe in. Or to do.
Conceivably, you could do a community water system as well. If you had a deep well with good service, you could put it in and provide just that area. That's what,
If so-
what's his name up on, Milo White Road is, or has had that problem?
Yeah. So maybe not a good one, but
Jericho East used to have their own water
Yeah.
treatment plant too.
But
That's
I-
a better one.
yeah, but I think if there was that was viable, that community would have acted by now. I mean, it could be viable, I don't know, but
I don't.
it feels like that Champlain Water, it would be the entity that
Yeah.
would,
They would be the logical entity.
so it feels like the study itself is pretty limited in scope.
The only the part you'd want, if we're gonna do a study of that, it would have to also be willingness to pay. Because either that's foisted upon the entire town to pay for their water, in which case a number of private water systems are gonna say, hello.
Mhm,
Or the residents who benefit from it are going to pay a high hookup fee.
mhm.
In which case, some of them may say, I'd rather work with trucked in water. I don't know.
So should the task be investigate extending Champlain Water District service to Jericho Center?
That would feel good to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Very
the only thing I don't know is the requirements of the CWSRF to get it funded to pay. Or you have to, for them to fund you to do the extension, it's kind of like the wastewater. They require you to do certain studies. You can't just
We
call them
do.
up
Yeah,
and say, we've decided to go with Champlain Water.
Right.
That whatever, however that exploration would have to meet their requirements. But that would be more explicit. You're right, like, we don't want to talk about options that are. Why wouldn't we prioritize that option?
I think it's fine to prioritize that option, but I also think it's, if Champlain Water District comes back and says, we don't want to do it or we can't do it, I don't think that should be the end of the discussion.
In FY 27.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because I don't think it would take long to have a conversation with Champlain Water.
Right, yeah.
So what if we just change the statement here? So it says study capacity limits and expansion opportunities. If we took out and just said, explore expansion opportunities, blah, 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 and develop a recommended options, right? List of priority options, right? So if we just took out that first part, it's like explore, right? Expansion opportunities for water service and develop a recommendation, recommendation.
Right, so I think the terminology or they use is the preferred alternative.
Okay,
So we'd want to recommend a preferred alternative.
right?
That would actually be the, probably also then tie into the deliverable.
Right? I think that would do it. And then in that, there will have to be an analysis of and coming up with a preferred alternative that will be what's best for the land and then what's cost feasible and where are the funding sources.
Right,
I'm making this up, mind you, but
yeah, no, that's all makes, yes,
okay.
makes sense. Okay, so it's, does anybody not, or does everybody basically, if you had your druthers, you'd work on water service before the bike ped plan, because water service, as Wendy said, is public safety essential. Bike ped is, I mean, it's also safety and essential, but it's more of an improvement rather than a remediation situation.
And I would put the official map ahead of the bike ped plan.
Okay,
I agree.
I think we've got our
Really
numbers.
lovely is if all the excitement about the ped plan, those people wanted to have like a significant ownership of the official map in some way. Right, like if we could harness that energy. So just, I'm looking at, it doesn't have any stakeholders for the official map.
I know, but Bike Ped is sort of a new, this group is new.
Understandable, but I want them to be some of the stakeholders. They don't have to own it, but I want them to be a stakeholder,
right.
right? No, I want them to be a stakeholder. I want them to be with us pushing for it.
Okay, so here's an update on the bike ped plan,
Okay,
is that the bike ped committee has been in conversations with Paula and Chris Shaheen about the need to update the plan. And they have basically said that they don't think they have the bandwidth and they don't think they have the expertise. And so Paula asked me and Chris Shaheen if the planning commission could do it. And
when
I
they say the plan, they mean, do they mean like a map plan or do they mean how do we move forward plan?
yeah, it's a written, so we have a 2015 plan and it's a written plan. It has a lot of maps in it.
Got it, okay.
It's kind of like the commercial district master plan.
Right.
How long is it though?
No, well, you know, it has appendices and stuff. It's standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's comprehensive.
yes. However, most of the work was done by CCRPC. And most of the work probably would be done again by CCRPC. So it's one of those where, so even though maybe it didn't come up high on our list, I think we're getting assigned that anyway. To at least oversee it and to have input on it.
Hopefully we have a better outcome than the last bike
Right.
ped piece that came through.
Right,
Right.
well, it will be, I think it still does make sense to get advice about the staging between the official map and the bike ped plan before making this prioritization. I just feel like we can't until we have that greater insight.
Right, but I think what we just did is probably like enough
Okay.
that we don't necessarily have to make those choices at the moment. But I feel, it seems like everybody's on the same page. We don't,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't seem like we have radical different ideas about what our marching orders should be and what about spending our time and efforts on. Okay, anybody want to say anything more about this? Okay, so we'll move on to the next. Oh, I did say that I would take public comment on this topic. Do we have anybody with us who wants to share any thoughts on what you've just heard from the planning commission, which I can appreciate was maybe a little bit hard to follow?
I think we only have one person left.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so then we'll go on to the next item, which is reports. So what you see here is about 2025 Municipal Day. Which is like a big conference. It's in, I think, Montpelier. I've gone before. It's really motivating and really fun, and you learn a lot to go to these big conferences when you meet other people from other towns and they're struggling with a lot of the same issues and good networking. So if anybody would like to attend,
And then the agenda's online.
yes,
October,
October 17th.
which is a Friday. That's awesome. Fridays are great for me to go.
I'm gonna go.
So then we let Paul know by the
Okay.
August 22, which is
Okay.
this Friday.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
all right, next.
Turn on the highlighter. No, I can't turn it off. And every time I touch the screen.
This is really making me appreciate how much Chris Shaheen has transformed our meetings and our work.
Yeah.
Okay. there we
Okay, so does anybody have any updates from as a liaison point of view?
Well, I can report on the first task force meeting, since we had it. It was great. It was, very much a first meeting. Everyone was kind of feeling out the process, but, I think it's a good group of people. I think, we have someone from CCRPC with us who has a lot of experience, not necessarily a ton of experience with this exact process. But a lot of good energy. The select board, Peter Booth was there in place of Eric, couldn't be there that day. But they also, and Cam and Finley gave their presentation, which are very familiar with, but they gave it to the task force. And they emphasized again the need for select board leadership. And so the select board agreed that they would do their best to have two people at these meetings, and have more representation and more voices to bring back to the select board. So that was good. So we're meeting monthly, which is not super often. I suggested that the task force could follow the planning commission model, which is, smaller groups in between, to get more done and move things along. And I think that's probably what we will end up doing. So it's, we're off to a good start. I think I was telling Susan this, it's heavy on, the task force is heavy on the engineering side, which will be good, but we will need to have strong sort of outreach and marketing efforts as well. So anyway, but it was good.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I have some updates. Does anyone else have updates?
I don't have an update, but just an afterthought. I think it would be nice if we got some kind of thank you for Cam and Finley. I don't know whether.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah, really nice idea.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Thinking. Based on your comment, Eric, are you aware of the update to the whole raceway sidewalk from Jericho to Route 15 thing that got tacked up? No, your face is.
The one I'm talking about, they were gonna put in some bollards along Raceway.
Yes.
Like that got
Right.
taken down.
Yes, I will,
That one you're aware of. Yeah.
But out of that conversation came a suggestion to instead use the grant money to revitalize the sidewalk that goes from the Jerry Hill Senior Committee and then follows Raceway until it gets to Route 15. And if you're saying what sidewalk, well, that's because it's buried under,
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Later.
So actually that was approved.
Oh.
And so AARP decided that they would transfer the money that they had previously wanted to put towards the bollards, and I think even a little bit more. And now they're working on a plan to start that process. So that was sort of lemonade that came out of lemons, I would say, maybe. So we'll see, but the bike ped connectivity committee is working on that project still with Local Motion. So, and really kudos to Jack at Local Motion because he's been, well, he was put through the ringer several occasions, and B, he's stuck with it and really, persevered and made this possible, so.
We have a really great new ally who just joined Local Motion as a staff member who left from the Agency of Community and Development, who used to be the Better Places guy.
Yeah.
So just so you know, just to know, and we can connect him with,
Are you saying he's from Jericho?
no,
Okay, you're just saying he's a good ally.
he's a really good ally who now is at Local Motion, who is all about healthy community design and transportation. So, if our bike and ped, or if we end up taking on some bike and ped planning, he is stellar. He's stellar.
Okay.
Are you remembering his name?
Oh, yeah. I just didn't know if I wanted to say that.
Oh, okay, well, whatever.
But yes, I'd
Okay.
be happy to. He's a colleague, like I worked with him a gazillion years ago and I'm still connected with him. and-
Got it.
Great.
Yeah,
Good to know.
yeah, yeah. Super and very creative and knows all the rules and all the ways in which to work it creatively with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Energy Task Force met last night and I was at that meeting and, in October, they are inviting someone to sort of lead a discussion, on how energy efficiency, efficient energy uses in homes can actually be compatible with, affordable housing in the sense that we're using it like, medium income homes and that they're not mutually exclusive and that he's going to sort of lead a talk on that. So that is coming in October. And that guy lives in Jericho and has a lot of building experience with sort of like net zero homes and things like that. So,
And that will be open to the public?
yeah, absolutely. And Conservation Commission is meeting tomorrow, so I don't really have any big updates on that. But I did go to the Community Leadership Summit 2 weeks ago, and I went to a lot of good sessions. The one that I think really sparked a lot of curiosity for me was the one on effective communications. And I took home a lot of, I think, important points from that. And the things that I just want to share with you quickly are the three numbers that the speaker tossed out to us, which was 6, which right now is the average reading level of American citizens, 6th grade. 42, which is the percent of working adults who are experiencing some level of burnout, 42%, and then 9, which is the number of seconds that the average person is now able to commit to reading a document or an email like that. So that's what we're working within. That's the environment that we are working within. And so that just really got me thinking about all of the upcoming communications that we need to put out and how important being mindful of this stuff is going to be in terms of our effectiveness. So, yeah, I don't know.
So we all need to get TikTok accounts?
No, because that makes you more distracted and less able.
No, to communicate our message out with TikTok.
Oh,
We could have like a planning commission TikTok on why this is good.
I mean, there is the Jericho residents Facebook page, but because of this takeaway, Sabina and I worked together on an update to the planning commission webpage that just kind of has a little summary about the bylaw modernization grant, what's in there. And it literally took us like 3 hours to make it shorter and shorter
Right.
and shorter
Yeah.
and shorter, but still accurate and still informative without, it's such a hard balance, staying way up lofty gobbledygook. It'll save time and save money. I mean, every advertisement says that
Right.
without telling you what the product actually does. So,
it's been a great
it
exercise.
was a good exercise, yeah.
Yeah, so.
We learned a lot. Scrutinizing, we're like, oh, I thought it used to say this, and so we wound up going back to the zoning changes and looking at it. So
Thank you
anyway,
for doing that
Sure.
hard work, because that's really important. I was thinking about what's not on here is, well, I guess it is because of the select board, it's like any planning that we need to do for preparing for the select board vote
yeah.
and hearing,
Mhm.
which I don't know if we want to talk about or not, but it's on my radar to think about how important.
We can talk
That's
about that
going to
under
be.
other business.
Okay,
Okay.
The only thing I have is JCDC meets on Thursdays, which summers is difficult for me to do unless it's raining. It's the last Thursday, but going through their minutes, they are working still on the railroad property, getting some surveys, but they've also started exploring the possibility of selling it lock, stock, and barrel. So it's still on their plate. They're still trying to address how do we get more housing in there. Problem is water and wastewater, like most of Jericho. So
I've been remiss. I have not attended a food hub task force meeting of late.
They've been doing a lot though.
I know they've been so
It
busy.
is coming up in a week. And I went to the luncheon that they had last Sunday. And 168 people were served lunch, free lunch. It's amazing. It was a great, talk about building community and talk about, going back to what Cam and Finley were telling us,
Yeah.
there was no agenda.
Right.
There was just people talking and getting to know each other and like, it was Underhill and Jericho, so I met people from Underhill that I never met before and all the food was from local farms. So I think that's a great model for community building.
Their pamphlet that they sent out.
Yeah.
Of all the farms, that was
Right.
really good too.
Yeah.
That was really good, yeah.
Yeah,
that's every week.
no, that lunch or that meal is twice a year, I think.
Oh.
That's a pretty extensive project, but
Pizza things every week.
the pizza thing is every Tuesday, and I think that's also, I think, I have yet.
Yeah. I
It's
did
always
not-
like either this meeting is happening or some
Right.
other thing, so next week is the last one of the season, I think I'm gonna really try to get to that one, but yes, that's a great point, they're also doing the pizza nights.
Yeah, okay. I'll
So,
go next week.
All right, any other liaisons? Okay, so other business. I wanted to just let everybody know that we did receive an email from Bob DeVost. That's the person that you were talking about earlier, who lives on Milo White Road, or I think it is. Reiterating their concerns about their water, reiterating that the town really needs a town-wide plan for water. And he also is asking that the town meet with all the water entities a couple of times a year and be like much more proactive and involved. Chris Shaheen explained to him that that was not the purview of the planning commission and was going to help him connect again with the select board. But I did say that I would bring it up here at the meeting and let everybody know. If anybody wants to read his email in detail, I'm happy to share it with you. I did, I did also prepare a response to him that I think might help him, that I have not sent to him yet, but I will, which is basically asking him very specific questions, like how many houses are connected to your water system? What is the actual failure? Here are some state resources that we're familiar with, so that maybe if his, other than the meetings, if his requests maybe could be a little bit more specific. And also I will let him know that it's in the town plan to look at Jericho Center, and while that might not really solve his problem or his neighborhood's problem, it is at least on the radar. Invite him to participate in that process. So that's that.
Does anybody know what Jericho East's water system used to look like, or is it the foothills, aren't they on a community
I
water
think the
system?
fire department guys know all that stuff. I don't know.
Is Foothills on community water? Or just septic?
I don't know. And I don't know if this CWSRF, my understanding is that the Milo White neighborhood is large enough to be considered a public water entity, even though it's like private and it's a homeowner. I think if it's more than X number of houses, that this if they have water issues, why is this not available to them?
Mhm.
Or is it available to them? Like,
Right.
they don't, I think they could use maybe the expertise of the town, of a town, kind of a staff person, because they're just homeowners who don't know. So anyway, I'm trying to bridge.
But I don't
see if can
know
bridge
that-
that gap.
CWRSS.
Water, state revolving fund.
That might be
I don't
not
know
be the
that-
right entity.
That they would work with a private,
They're not private. There'd be the definition of a public water system is like greater than X number of.
right,
houses.
but it's not managed by the town.
Right.
That's
It's-
what I mean.
But it's managed by, they are an entity. So that's what I went to one of those municipal day conferences and I talked to somebody about their issue. And it sounds like there is ways for them to get help. But this is what I'm saying is that to understand exactly what kind of help they really need. Okay, so Heidi raised the thing about the hearing. So the select board is holding their hearing, I think it's on September 4th, about the bylaw modernization grant. They have received information that now is posted on the website that Chris Shaheen and I worked on, which is a frequently asked questions document. So they've received that and they, I think have also sat down with Chris and just asked questions and tried to understand exactly what's in there. I had said that I was gonna maybe post on Front Porch Forum and maybe the planning commission would also post on Front Porch Forum. But that was raised as a question as to whether or not we should do that because it's now already in the hands of the select board and they've already made revisions to it. So I'm trying to suss that out about whether or not it would be helpful or if it would be better if they did it or if Chris Shaheen did it or if Paula did it. Not really quite sure. You have the content there though, now,
That's great that we have the.
that we can
content.
direct people.
I think, yeah, I think, so if I hear what you're saying, it's figuring out who's best positioned to make that clear to people who are looking for
Right,
full information.
right, to round out what
Yeah.
they're hearing.
I think the only concern I have is time will tick away
Mhm.
with them not making that decision. Will you be able to get an answer, do you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, I think we should be able to get an answer within a day or two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had been thinking I would just as a private citizen, because I've had a couple of times in public recently where I have found myself needing to say, I am so glad that we have a history keeper. And I also know that some of what is being said publicly in, for example, in Front Porch Forum, doesn't provide the full range of information that the planning commission considered or the full recognition of the recommendations that are being made or the fact that we have there's a stepwise approach that's planned to address many of the issues that have been raised. So I'm finding like I'm saying this a few times over and I want to just say it publicly,
Mhm.
but I also don't want to do anything that jeopardizes all the fabulous work that we've already done. So I have not stepped out to do anything as an individual publicly other than be a personal mouthpiece when I'm speaking with people.
Right,
But it's enough of a message now that I've had to use like a few times over. I'm thinking, oh, this would be really helpful for people to know.
right. So if we get a green light, you'd be great if you would do it and you're happy to do it. And we
Yeah.
can send you the link to the follow-up details and everything. Okay,
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. I would
Okay,
be happy
that
to
would
do
be
that.
great.
And one of the things that Susan and I were recently talking about was just and we've done this in the past and we've done a pretty good job about just making sure that we're, like when we did the town plan, really putting out information and always just being
Yeah.
ahead of the game, ahead of the curve with our information output and so that in the in our next project, we'll kind of like lessons learned a little bit here, but, at our next project, we could sort of resume that level of outreach, so that if somebody posts something on Front Porch Forum that is not quite accurate, people will have already heard so much from us that they can then hopefully say, oh, wait, that doesn't jive with the last three things I read.
I wanna
That-
verify
Right,
this, you know.
exactly. Anyway, just sort of
Yeah,
a hopeful,
Yeah, in hindsight,
In hindsight.
we let too much of a vacuum
right.
occur over the last several months as we
Well,
were working
It
on the
wasn't
project.
exactly it was not our
No,
fault,
no.
but it just,
Yeah,
Yes, except if someone wants to be inflammatory and polemical and there's not,
No,
there's nothing we can do.
no,
there's nothing we can do, but that's what Sabina's saying.
That's the point.
It wouldn't land in a vacuum, it would land in a more informed environment.
Yeah.
what do they call it? It's, setting the frame or something.
Yeah,
There's some
yeah,
terminology around
yeah.
that, but.
And it wouldn't be and then it wouldn't feel reactionary,
Right,
it wouldn't feel like.
Well,
We're-
exactly, but I could also see us as the planning commission at this moment saying, we're really excited.
Yes.
We're so glad that, we're finally, the select board is going to have the opportunity to finalize what we hope they'll finalize our recommendations, and we appreciate we got great public comment, we got a lot of engagement from people,
And we
absolutely.
incorporated a lot of the.
Right, exactly, and being able to say, and we did the best that we could to find a way to incorporate most of it, and also recognize that there were some things that needed to happen now, given the confines of the BMG, but had set the stage for us to have a much quicker conversation and decision-making for what comes next, all within the same goals,
Right.
right?
Still more work to do, but we made a lot of progress.
We did, and
Yeah.
I really do feel like there's so much that, ground that we covered already that was gonna make the next go faster,
I think so too.
right?
Yeah.
I really do.
Okay, any other business? All right, so the next meeting, September 2nd, we are going to begin the work on the item that's the first on the list, the working on the rural districts. And Chris will be sending out some homework in advance of that meeting,
Love it.
some reading. And the way he has it planned is that each meeting he showed us the various topics, and we'll have some research to do so we can come to that pretty ready to hit the ground running. Does everybody think they're gonna be here? September 2nd, right after Labor Day. Okay, good. So would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I could do that.
Okay, Heidi, thank you. And a second,
I can second that.
Wendy, thank you. We're ready to go. All those in favor? Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.